Well folks, the Conjuring saga has come to an end with a real-life case that famously forced the real Ed and Lorraine Warren into retirement. Only, that's a lie. The film itself is what it is. You know, it's a Conjuring movie, so it's a perfectly serviceable late summer popcorn blockbuster with jump scares and hauntings galore. However, the real case that this movie is based on has been heavily marketed as the Warrens' last, and supposedly has significant ties to the real-life first case that the Warrens ever took on. Or is that another lie?
There's an evil here. Something I've felt before.
In today's episode, we take a look at the facts and break down what really happened to the Smurl family from The Conjuring Last Rites. Let's go.
Their tales of terror had experts and curiosity seekers from all over flocking to that house where the Smurls live. The so-called possessed place is what makes this one of Newswatch 16's biggest stories.
1972, Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. Jack and Janet Smurl, the parents of a middle-class family of 6, are devastated by a massive hurricane, which left their entire family and community displaced and seeking reliable shelter. Homes and businesses in town were destroyed by up to 16 to 18 inches of water. Jack Smurl, a retired Navy veteran, moved his family to West Patton, PA for safety. What he didn't know is that this natural disaster that removed him and his family from their home was only a catalyst to an entire world of shock and horror. And not just for Jack, Janet, and their 4 kids, who are named Dawn, Heather, Karen, and Shannon, but also for Jack's parents who are living with him in the house.
And next door we have my mother and my father, Mary and John Smurl.
In a duplex home.
Right, in a duplex home.
For years, the Smurl family lived in this double-block home with 8 residents, and each person would experience small paranormal mishaps from the early days of living there. At first, it was nothing that required paranormal investigation. Just doors closing shut on their own, toilets mysteriously flushing in the middle of the night, and even strange noises and bizarre nightmares would occasionally haunt the family members.
This thing in your house is a demon.
The thing to remember here is that this all started in the early 70s, when things like this were more difficult to investigate and debunk with technology available at the time. So nobody in the family really felt the need to try to explain this. It's a huge family of 8 living under one roof, which meant that strange noises and goings-on could easily be explained with logic and reason. That is, until...
Jack Smurl told of the living nightmare, one that included levitations, screams in the night, his kids and dogs thrown around by ghouls, and a violent ghost that him.
Fast forward to 1982 to 1983. The kids are getting older. Jack and Janet have built a new life from the soggy remains of their old one, and the family has seemingly moved on. Jack is working a high-profile job for the state government, and his wife and kids are happy, minus a few hauntings that are seemingly getting harder and harder to explain as the happiness around the new home gets more and more bizarre. Years had passed, and what started as doors mysteriously creaking and opening and closing on their own turned into night terrors that Janet was experiencing. So much so that she got to a point where it was difficult for her to tell what was real and what was a dream. And this went on for years, and not just for Janet, and not just for Janet and Jack, but the kids as well. It's 1986 now, and Jack Smurl has had enough. The demons that he believes to be in his home are now physically assaulting him and his family. We're talking blatant hauntings, according to Jack Smurl. Even at one point going as far to, and this is from Jack himself, in a 1986 public statement with the Times Leader, he claimed to have been assaulted multiple times by an entity that was haunting his home, and even claimed at one point that a ghost, quote, tossed one of his daughters down the stairs.
Notice that this stairway, as you're coming up, is very, very narrow.
Not to mention the usual hauntings and even abusing their family dog.
Okay.
This, coupled with an increasingly bizarre stench coming from the home, and inexplicable animal grunt sounds keeping them up at night, it all led Jack and Janet Smurl to call none other than Ed and Lorraine Warren to come to their home in Pennsylvania and check it out for themselves.
Even these self-proclaimed scientists tried to get into the possessed place. They were not successful, but these demonologists from Connecticut were. This pair tried to rid evil spirits with the presence of God.
This, of course, is only after they hired a priest from Connecticut to come down to Pennsylvania and perform 3 exorcisms on the home, which the priest himself said publicly were unsuccessful. And in their continued desperation over the years, hired multiple priests, both local and from out of state, and even at one point brought in a well-known mentalist magician to try to debunk any theories that this place was actually haunted.
Of the most violent thought you can imagine.
Oh, God.
All in hopes of figuring out what's going on, but even more importantly, to stop it from continuing to happen. Now, would it surprise you if I said that the real-life Ed and Lorraine Warren immediately deemed this case to be fully legit? Well, because that's what happened.
This family here, very religiously oriented, good Catholics, good Christians, were picked for one purpose. God wanted to show his power over evil, and these were the people he did it through.
They even stated early on that there was a somewhat personal connection that they felt to this haunting, which has never really fully been explained, by the way. But the whole point is that where we're at in the story, this may be a Smurl family haunting, but Ed and Lorraine Warren definitely have a dog in this fight. They begin the vetting process, testing objects, attempting to make contact with the demons, looking for any clues on what they might be up against. Lorraine Warren, a self-proclaimed clairvoyant with the ability to communicate with the dead and paranormal, even notices that the ghosts she's searching for seem to be familiar with her. So in around August of '86, the Smurls and the Warrens have gone public with their story, and this became a media frenzy. Citing demonic hauntings and otherworldly evil as, quote, plaguing their home, this sends the media into an absolute field day.
Just like the demons, the Smurl story wouldn't go away. The National Enquirer printed their tale of terror. Then this newspaper reporter wrote a book. The family's fright also played out in this TV movie.
Some are finding the story to be a tried and true haunting of epic proportions, and others are finding it to be bullshit. And the latter of those two groups also includes a scientist by the name of Paul Curts. Curts is a science man who specializes in debunking claims of the paranormal. In a press interview in 1986, he was asked about his thoughts on the case as it was sweeping the nation in a frenzy of newspapers and TV. Curts called the Smurls case and the Warrens' involvement in it a, quote, hoax and ghost story, and even went as far as to suggest that the Smurls were mentally unstable and were experiencing some form of mass hysteria with the whole family buying into it. Of course, some of the true believers in this story would criticize Kurtz's analysis and calling it undue judgment, stating that it would be near impossible for the entire family to experience the same hallucinations and mania without an external force causing it. It didn't seem to make sense that every member of the family was recalling these events the same way, even if it were a case of something being mentally wrong. This left the public with questions though. If it was a hoax, why? If it was real but not paranormal, then who was assaulting Jack and the kids and the dog? How could they not know? Ed Warren told the Times-Tribune in a 1986 interview,
After a night in the Smurl home, their reaction?
It's very powerful. It's invisible. I don't care if you want to call it a devil or a ghost or a demon. There's something in this home which has the intelligence to inflict physical and psychological harm.
He knew this from supposedly witnessing a bed and nightstand levitate on their own while investigating the home and noticing a significant temperature drop of, quote, at least 30 degrees when entering the home. And during this time, Lorraine was growing more and more certain that they knew these demons that they were hunting. She believed that what they were up against was something powerful and clever enough to have followed them from haunting to haunting, a demon that they were never able to exorcise. Only that's a lie, because that's all stuff that happened in the movie and cannot be confirmed anywhere online. And trust me, I have been looking. The media attention swelled, and by 1987, the Smurl family are being swarmed by dozens, sometimes up to 100, reporters on their property nearly every day. Some of these people who believe in their situation and others who don't. This level of public interest and the attention made the Smurls somewhat national figures and certainly local celebrities. There's also been a novel about the Smurl story, and not to mention a TV movie that was made based on that novel, even catching the attention of Jason Miller, a known actor who played Father Damien in The Exorcist.
If you're the devil, why not make the straps disappear?
That's
much too vulgar display of power, Curtis.
Miller reached out to the family, and they offered to have him come check out the home. Now, Jason Miller is one of many actors from the set of The Exorcist in 1973 who truly believed that that production was, in fact, haunted. He became a believer while filming The Exorcist, and he fully believed that they conjured up a few demons themselves. So this guy was bought like all the way into this stuff, right? And he was a native Pennsylvanian who felt personally connected to this case. However, Miller's conclusion was that the family was ultimately being distressed by something, although he did say that he didn't fully believe that they were being haunted by paranormal entities. And by this point, the Warrens were no closer to resolving their case. Lorraine is growing increasingly aware of what they're up against, and they don't know how to beat it.
It wasn't done with our family.
Now, here's the thing. I made a claim in the beginning of this video where I said that it's a complete lie that this was their last case. And that's true. This movie is being heavily pushed as the case that was so bad that it drove the Warrens into retirement. Witness why this case was their last. The thing is, the Warrens went on to do many paranormal investigations after just giving up on this one. What happened was the Smurl family just sold the house in 1988 and moved on. And the Warrens were never called to go back, so they just didn't. Now, for the drama of a movie, I can see why some liberties have to be taken to really make this feel like a high-stakes thing. It makes sense to me, but in reality, this was an underwhelming conclusion to a case that had sparked so much media attention, it'll be forever known. But the reality is, it was just never solved, and nobody other than the Smurl family, and I guess to like some degree the Warrens, ever experienced anything paranormal going on. And when the family moved out, the new owner never reported any issues or incidents of the paranormal. No hauntings, no doors opening by themselves, no creaks in the night, nothing.
Today, some 15 years later, all seems quiet at the former Smurl home in West Pittston. I talked with a family relative who tells me the Smurls still live in the area, but they don't want to relive their horror. That horror apparently died with the ghosts back in the 1980s.
Now, supposedly there is some local Pennsylvania priest who, I can't find his name, but I did find a quote from a local Pennsylvania priest who claims that he was able to chase the foul smells and violent demons out of the home. And if that's true, then I guess we have this unknown Pennsylvania priest to thank for one of the most famous haunted houses in the world at 330 Chase Street.
They're telepathically projected to the listener.
Now,
this is what she was hearing.
Now you also notice, Tony, now they're beginning to show fear.
So, what happened to Jack, Janet, and the kids? Well, they moved out, and surprisingly, they were no longer being haunted. Nothing ever happened to them again. Jack lived a happy life until 2017 when he passed away at 75, and one of his daughters even became a paranormal investigator. The rest of them just lived out their lives happily and quietly like the rest of us, and I guess we'll just never really know what went down in that haunting. Now, how does this compare to the movie version of all of this? It really doesn't. The movie is, of course, going to twist the facts, embellish the details a lot, and ham up those jump scares to really make it seem like this was a spooky haunting. But you know what? That's what they have to do. Honestly, I think that if they tried to make a faithful adaptation of this story, you would have a boring movie with a lot of questions and no action or answers.
We were young. We were scared. We ran away.
I actually kind of like the Conjuring Last Rites. You know, I think that the first one and the second one were really top tier when James Wan was making them, and then I think that the last two have been, you know, a little less in quality, just a little bit more. They feel generic. I don't know. But in the newest one, there's some good like family dynamic stuff, and they're really trying to make it like a heartfelt ending. So I think that there's a lot of details that they just had to add in to make it feel earned, you know, to tie it all together, to bring it home, that kind of thing. Even though this specific case was nothing. I mean, it was nothing. Although to whoever was assaulting these people, especially, that's fucked up. I hope whoever was doing that burns in hell. I don't know. Or maybe they already are. Maybe it was a demon. Maybe it was a demon. Anyway, folks, that is the story of the haunting on 330 Chase Street. The Smurl family from The Conjuring Last Rites. Stay safe out there, folks, and have a happy, spooky season, because we're getting there, baby. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe for the best in movie content, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye. Maybe there's a way I could just like disappear. We could. Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.